Here we are.
Yes.
Hello, Nicole.
Hello, Dor. Hello, Pirate Dor. Possibility Pirate Dor, who I have the story. You have a lot of things on, that are alive and a lot of things that are cooking on the back burner. And, you know, I mean, where are you?
So I'm just in Israel right now, and I landed here 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, from a 9 months journey that ended up in Costa Rica. I did the ETB there, expand the box training with Clinton and Aunt Chloe, and then 2 months, 2 weeks after of surfing and just like a bit of more vacation vibe, I came back here for my next work, for my next job on the bench. What
You
about
did.
you?
Okay. Well,
You you go first. Where are you? Check
okay.
in.
Okay, let's do it that way. Mm. I'm in this little room at my mother's house where I've lived in the past and many things have happened here. One that is very dear to me is that this is the room where my father's body was brought home after he died to prepare his body for his celebration of life and then to be cremated. And it's and I'm staying here after being 7 weeks. It's on the Sunshine Coast of BC in Western Canada, and I'm here after having been for the last 7 weeks in California for an ETB and lab with Vera Franco, and time in San Francisco and in the wilderness north of San Francisco at a very cool permaculture project. So really living as a next culture nomad with this focus on uh, having culture to culture conversations as I as I do this ongoing experiment of radically relying on my archetypal lineage, my feelings, the Earth's Coincidence Control Office to kind of reveal a path to me that I choose. And yeah, and I'm here. This is where I am right now today.
Yeah, we talked about it before. There's so many things that we're doing that are similar, that are resonating with each other. And you talked about being a next culture nomad. We were together collaborating in so many spaces together, and then you kind of disappeared. You went off grid in the last few months, and that's where you work. Can you say more a little bit about that?
Yeah, I chose to do the experiment of not having my cell phone attached to cell phone towers, so I could only use my phone as a little computer, not as a telephone. Uh, and so I needed Wi-Fi service or somebody's hotspot to be able to access the internet. And a lot of the time, I was in places where, well, I didn't want to. I wanted to be in person. I wanted to be in this more Gaian field with not so much electromagnetic digital influence happening. And it really curbed how much activity I participated, how many spaces I participated in online. And having been back now for, I think, 3 days, I find myself I so much more like into the digital space that I'm in. And then I get a much clearer impulse than I used to, okay, shut it down, get outside, go be with people in person. And so yeah, that's been a change for me, and I don't know how it will go.
Yeah, I see the effect of this change. I literally see the change in you since the last time I saw you. It's like something rejuvenated in your energy, and it's like a new Nicole, and you probably also did a lot of processes and transformation over that time also.
Yeah.
And I mean, every time I know we talked about doing an interview, and we're kind of interviewing each other, and I just every time we meet, I feel so excited and happy, and I've yeah, just happy that we're hanging out like this online and recording this for whoever's gonna watch it.
Yeah. Will you talk next about what is like in front of you on your bench today?
Yeah, right now it's I have two things. We have a team that's holding space for a space holder training, and that's going to be online. It starts the 17th of this month, July, and it's going to go for 6 weeks as the first module in a year-long training. So it's really exciting, and we have a great team. I'm with Manuela and Celine, that maybe you know them, and we have a couple of other people in the team also that are kind of supporting from around it. And we're launching it, and it's it's exciting to. I mean, while I was traveling in the last 9 months, almost on a daily basis, also here in Israel, I meet all these people that one already aware that they want to be space holders, or it's in their heart, and like a 2-minute conversation just leads me to, okay, so you're a space holder, and they're like, yeah, I guess I'm a space holder. and and yeah, so that's something that I'm really burning for, to create spaces where they can empower themselves, where they can get distinctions in tool, and we can learn, and we can get distinctions in tool in these journeys together with them.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And the other thing is, I'm doing a rage club for the first time, a rage club in Hebrew in Israel.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Like, so many people already registered just from seeing the first post. They're like, what? Like, so many people's like, I want that. Is it's so different than what's going on here, and I think people immediately recognize it's a space that you can go and actually feel your feelings for the first time. Be safe to feel your anger, and it's a very fiery kind of state. But then, you know, can you really express conscious anger here? Is it allowed? So it's a really huge space that I'm glad I'm bringing.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing news.
Yeah, and we have the possibility management team that is this like a core group of people that had some possibility management training, and some of them just worked with me for a while, and they really feel connected to this. So we have this little group, and we're working together to publish these events, and we're just meeting every week almost since then. It's just nice, like you said, to meet people face to face and be in nature together and do stuff.
So that's the possibility management Israel team.
Yeah, that's the core team. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Who is in that team?
So we have Gemma.
Gamma, of
You
course.
probably know
Yeah.
her already, and we have Carrie. She's also did a lot of spaces lately, and we have David, and is like really. It's like a great evolutionary. It takes us every time we meet in nature. It takes us through these like processes, and it takes us deep. And we have Dorian, and he was with me in other spaces. So we have a bunch of more people.
Cool.
I'll write names in the text maybe after.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. And and what else is cooking for PM Israel?
I mean, I feel there is a huge space here to to bring to bring a new kind of distinctions, to bring the next um, the next distinctions, like the next way to think about things here, because there's a lot of very powerful people here, which you can feel by, the amount of activity that is going on. You just get here to this land and it's so intense, like everyone is doing and doing and looking for the next thing, but it's not very clear, and it's the context of it. It's like, what are we really doing? What are we creating? So a lot of it comes in like modern culture, creating technology or high tech and stuff like that. But then if you catch the people that are doing what we call edge work, they're doing transformation work, and then like making that context really clear. What are we doing to create next culture? What are we doing together? What is the technology of the meetings? How are we meeting with no hierarchy? And how are we meeting in a space that we can share our feelings? For example, anger. I'm angry because. So I feel like there's a huge space to bring that, and I think people are looking for that. So that's kind of our job.
Cool. And then there's this house that is
Yeah,
not
there.
a bridge house, but it's a pirate house. What's the distinction between a bridge house and a pirate house? Or
Yeah.
what's the
So
difference?
so bridge house is like these spaces that emerge lately with possibility management all over the world that are about transformation. Like someone is coming one way and is staying in that house for, I don't know, for a while, and that is going through all these processes, and he has space to experience, and then he gets out a different way. That's how my definition for a bridge house.
Mine too, often.
And then there's just a pirate house, which is a space where, I don't know, it's not so defined. The context is not so clear about what we're going to do, but people are coming in and crashing in, and if something calls them to come around to these lands, and they can stay and host, and host with someone from possibility management, and the of course the context of the house is different. You're allowed to feel here, and yeah, it's just kind of like a pirate, like a safe house for pirates to move through it.
Yeah, sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
Have you been to one of these pirate house ever in the world that is not declared as a pirate house, but it's like was almost like a pirate house?
Yeah, I I mean, I've been thinking of the house that I had for 5 years in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, as a bridge house, like a pre-bridge house. And now with your question, I'm thinking maybe that was a pirate house because it was definitely a space, like it was a space where people would come, yeah, for this haven, from modern culture and from the storm and from the journeys, the rough journeys of life. And it was a landing place, and it was a regenerative space. And sometimes when people left, they were oriented into next culture, and sometimes they weren't, because there weren't necessarily as clear, distinct spaces for processes, and yet it was a very emergent space and processes happened.
Hmm. So
So
what are the projects that you're working on right now? What's on your bench?
yeah, right now the main things on my bench are really gathering, resorting my physical material, kind of treasures, to get set up to go into this next adventure, which is into Alberta again, where I will be reconnecting with a lot of edge workers who haven't been using possibility management but have been hearing about me, while I have been studying and using it, and who are asking more questions. So this culture to culture conversation is ongoing. I'm going to be delivering 10 sessions in 3 days at
Wow.
something called Dirt Camp, which is a camp of 600
Whoa.
junior forest wardens families. So people who are committed to learning the skills that you need to have to live in the forest. And my offerings will be about conscious feelings and teamwork, team building for
Hmm.
projects. And then I'll be visiting another permaculture farm. So I am also, like you are, one of the people who are treasure hunting for radically regenerative projects to interview for the Experience 𝗟𝗏𝗏 travel guide book. So there's a little that woven in. I'm going to be joining a few other
Link below.
gatherings. Yeah, a few other gatherings that are other people are originating them, other edge workers are originating them, and I'm bringing this element of kind of radical aliveness, radical responsibility, radical relating, and weaving that in just by participating. And then, oh, and this is so precious, I am going to be holding space for a mother's retreat with 2 other mothers who are brand new to possibility management distinctions, who are just soaking it up, beginning with conscious anger work. And we're holding space for this retreat together called Journey to the Village. And it's for mothers in particular. And I'm so turned on about this project. This will be an emergent space where mothers will come for regeneration and possibilities for becoming seeds of villages, the village they want and need, in which
Mhm.
they can raise their children while they are being initiated into ever more authentic adulthood.
Wow,
So
so
this
many
is
projects.
this is huge, and it's woven with the other projects that are conscious anger work, like you. It's so similar. It's like the rage work on one side and then the space holding training. And this is what's really emerging next, is a series where sounds so similar to what you described, how I see it. I've distinguished 28 kind of steps that I take regularly as a space holder and as an evolving space holder. And so I want to kind of present these 28 steps, which create a path that is totally nonlinear, because you might go from step 7 to step 1 to step 16, like in the space of a few moments, really. And then focus on each of the steps too. I might be in one step for kind of a longer time,
Hmm.
focusing on it. And I'm calling in, similar to what you're saying, people who, when I say to them, so you're a space holder for transformation, for healing, for love, for clarity, for possibility, they're like, yeah, I am. And I'm like, yeah, me too. And I want to share because when I encountered possibility management as a space holder and as a person who trained other space holders, my capacity and ability to hold space and to train other space holders started to take a steep learning curve, upward swing. And I want this for other space holders, because I hear this story over and over, that their capacity and their ability is just rolling, and people are there, and then suddenly they'll hit some kind of wall inside themselves or in the relational space, and the thing that is just the old thing, whichever version of the old thing, happens again. And it's like they're finally feeling the pain of that, because it's like, oh, the tools I have, none of them work. The capacity I have, just I shut down here, and it's and my skills just, I want something else, something more. And when I was that person, it was the distinctions, tools, thought maps, and processes that possibility managers before me had already discovered that really made the difference and empowered me to become part of the team that is creating and evolving more maps, more processes, and adding tools that I had discovered in the previous decades to weave in. So I'm stoked about this. And
Wow.
what you said, like there's this apprentice team, and then there's the participant team. So it's on this edge of, it's not such a radically responsible emergent space as to be completely flattened out of hierarchy. It's like I have skills and capacity that the people coming in are developing, and they might have areas of skill and capacity that I don't have, which I'm sure they do. I'm sure anyone and everyone does. And yet when it comes to what the purpose is and what the orientation is, it's toward this next culture, archiarchy, authentic adulthood, and and they're and they're coming to, because I have possibilities or access to possibility and skills and tools that they want, that they see. Like, I want that. I want
Mm-hmm.
what gave you that. I want what grew you that. So
Yeah. I'm so glad that you're unpacking these 28 tools that you talked about, like 28 steps.
yeah.
Steps, sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's so important. I know, I mean, I've kind of been in your team during your journey in the last few years, and you've been in my team. And I know how many times we got stuck into these, barriers and places that nothing works and fall apart. And yeah, just like I think it's so helpful. Like for me, it was helpful to get this from other people. But the more I think it's maybe that's what's similar in our mission to unpack this, like this journey that we've been through, so people would be easier for them to digest, or it would be a faster bridge to cross. And what I see is that the bridges are becoming faster to cross. Like I see my clients, and it seems faster than the way I went through that. So what do
Yeah.
you think about that, actually?
I've been mulling over this, and because I think I noticed this too, that, and I think that it is there's this evidence that the distinctions, tools, maps, and processes of possibility management are evolutionary, and that they act on themselves and they act on possibilitators. And so I came to possibility management 3 years ago, and the people who came 3 months ago seem to be evolving faster than I evolved in my first 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
and Clinton talks about it that it took him like 30 years to have his first feeling. No, not exactly that, but just like as an examples that he shares a lot of times. It took me 20 years to get to this moment when I realized this. And
yeah,
that's like the first day of his training. So now, like the first day is like realizing what took him like 20 years to research.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like this acceleration is everywhere, and 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 just this part about, I'm always starting over with each of these 28 steps. And and yeah, I think that delivering them with the clarity that I have now, it creates more clarity in the space. So then the clarity is more contagious somehow. And I think some of it is just physics. It's just how it works.
Mm-hmm. I just have a question. It's a different kind of it's moving along a different direction, but I wonder what's going on in Canada right now. You're spending a lot of time there creating stuff there. And I wonder how this work, possibility management, and your work is being received there to that culture that is dominant there, whatever that culture is.
Yeah. Canadians are proud of being a mosaic as distinct from a melting pot, where they say in the United States, for example, a lot of people from a lot of different parts of the world came together and it all kind of melted together, and whereas in Canada people didn't melt together so much. They kept their they kept their they kept the differences of their ancestry kind of distinct, and they got to know each other and got to love each other and got to make something beautiful together, so that Canada is this mosaic. And I think that the one of the things that is maybe distinct about this part of the world is that the advantages of that are that there's this experience of honoring each other's cultures, and at least orienting towards kind of putting this good, bad, right, wrong thing behind us. As it's, and this is a generalization because there's always exceptions. Individuals are different sometimes, and so there's that. And at the same time, there's the kind of difficulty about that is this other thing that's known about Canadians as being very apologetic and polite. So super, super duper good girls and good boys, super duper rescuers, and super duper like do gooders. And so
I'm
it
laughing because it's the opposite box here. So
covering two sides of the
nobody
spectrum.
apologized for nothing.
Yeah. So the cool thing is it does mean that there are maybe, because the victim side of the low drama triangle can maybe kind of become the lover, communicator, village weaver of the high drama triangle, when people, especially when people access their sadness about how it's gone and start to get scared about, like, just really start to get scared and really start to hold space as evolutionaries. So this is what I see, and it's it's scary because it'll be like, oh my gosh, there's such a diversity of people in my circles. How are they ever gonna come together? I've got this incredible, this friend who is deep into reviving the indigenous practices of their Canadian indigenous ancestors, who is frowned on by many other indigenous because of how much they welcome anyone into the circles. They don't care if you're white, if you're green. If you want to learn how to be with the earth in these indigenous ways, you're welcome. And there's none of the, in other indigenous circles, they're very much focused on having the settlers accept and own what their ancestors did and what they still do. And it's those are scary spaces for me, because I'm like, yes, I want to own, and yes, I want to learn, and yes, I want to create something different with you. And there's this sense of like, can we move on from that yet? And often the answer is no. And then on the other side, I turn, I look at this friend, and he's already in this kind of hold space. And then I turn and I'll look at another friend comes to mind, she's so gentle and so generous and so responsible, yet she has barely been able to like get out and be with other people for the last 3 years with the way that the pressures of COVID and what was unfolding in her world personally came together. And I'm like, I want to go and live in the woods with this guy and bring her. Okay, that might not happen for a while. And then I think of like other people in my circles, these women I'm doing this mother's retreat with. One of them has 5 children, the other one has 6, and they're both single mothers. And I thought I had a lot with 4 children being a single mother. I'm like, wow, okay, bring it on. Let's just see what we can do.
Well, I just wanna bring a quick break for the possibility management nerds that are watching this, and I just caught you doing something, and you put the map of low drama as high drama, and you connected it to the different archetypal lineages. Which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, we can send some website to read about it, but it's mainly just disconnect for a second and just. So it's interesting that you put the victim because it's sadness, so it's the connector lover, and the rescuer because it's fear to the evolutionary. It's interesting. I never heard this before, so it's cool to make this connection. So like this new distinction that I just learned. That's why I love talking to you, because it's like flying, and new things like this come to the space. And yeah, what you said also like brought up this. Okay, so, sorry, the break, the nerd break ends, and I just wanted to share that the what I noticed that what you're talking about is a bit of these mixed cultures. And the reason I asked you about this is that I see that here, also in the land of Israel, there is all these mixed cultures that creates this mess. And there is this really old culture, like ancient Mediterranean, like Middle Eastern, and there's like the Jewish culture and each one of the religion cultures. And then there is the Israeli culture that was created here. And there's like the Western, like the modern culture coming from the West, like America. And there's like the new age culture that is arriving a lot, and a lot of people brought it from India. It's like all these different cultures, and it's such a mess. And I don't look at it as bad or good, but I'm just noticing that, and when I'm thinking about where is the necessity for next culture, that next culture for me, it's not about mixing all of this together, but it's creating the next thing for all of this, and maybe there is like a common ground in the next thing. And I think
Yeah.
you said something about it. Yeah.
Yeah, hearing you say that, something that comes is, and this gets really touchy, because in modern culture, the word culture means what part of the world and what foods and art and language and customs there were, or and a lot of people who have, with immigration, with slavery, with colonization, there have been so many clashes of culture where one culture ended up dominating and the other was threatened and maybe even died out. Like languages died out, knowledge about how to live in certain parts of the world in a Gaian way died out. Art forms died out. And when I talk about modern culture, I'm not talking about that kind of culture. I'm not talking about the music and the arts and the language and the customs. I'm talking about more of era, like patriarchy, because each of those cultures from all the different parts of the world that either dominated or submitted or died out or were, decimated or destroyed, in a way they were all, and this is where it gets touchy, because some of those cultures were matriarchal, are called matriarchal, and it was still about the woman ruling or having the final say. And so maybe in a way they were still hierarchically matriarchal. And don't quote me on that because I don't know enough about it. And I suspect that there were cultures that were very much more what I would call egalitarian, that it wasn't based on gender, who people gave their authority to, but they were externalized authority based. And so the real shift, the real cultural shift, and when I say culture in this sense, it's like, what's the petri dish got growing in it that archaearchy and next culture are about is internalizing the externalized authority orientation. So really orienting to each person, orienting to their inner source of authority and collaborating, and each having a say when it's relevant to have a say, and really owning when it's not relevant. Like, it's just really not relevant for me to have a say in so many things, where, in other forms of modern culture, whether they're in that country, this country, or with those color people or those languaged people or the people who practice those customs or arts, it's really about this way that these tools and distinctions and maps and processes that possibility management has discovered and evolved and figured out and been using can empower anyone from any culture to evolve into this new way for humans to collaborate together, that I think could really make a difference in terms of climate change, climate instability, and could really make it possible for humans to, well, and I love what I got this from Clinton, was to help Gaia's risky human experiment to succeed rather than it fail, where human caused climate catastrophe actually becomes essentially a species suicide.
Can you give an example for that? How can these cultures taking their inner authority can help for climate change, for example?
Yeah. I think that the friend I talked about, the Indigenous man here in Canada, who is, instead of kind of outwardly orienting to uh, like the ways of the ancestors as a kind of group thing, that somehow he has inner authority where he can say, this is relevant for right now and this isn't. And he might be argued with, and he will hold space and hear people out and make proposals. And so to me, he's maybe even a little bit unconsciously using next culture technology that he happens to have discovered. And I'm not sure how. That would be an interesting discovery for me to find out from him. But he's also open to ways that might be labeled not the ways of his Indigenous ancestors, if it's relevant in the here and now, given that the climate is changing in the lands that his ancestors knew so much about. It's like, okay, this species is extinct. We can't use it anymore. We can maybe put some care and attention into finding out if we can bring it back. Maybe there's, somewhere there's a holdout in a microclimate, and we can put some time and effort into keeping an eye out for that, but not but shift and go into what are possibilities that come from other ancient knowledge, and what are possibilities that might be completely brand new and don't fit under the heading of Canadian area or Turtle Island Indigenous nations knowledge.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting doorway for working with cultures to bridge them to next culture, because that's what you're saying. It's almost the box of a lot of cultures is like, this is who we are, that's what we do, but it's not really relevant for what we need, which is, yeah, bringing a different culture that doesn't destroy Gaia and doesn't extinct 156 species a day, and doesn't, this, like, put plastic everywhere. And so, yeah, that's, I yeah, I can connect to that in, like, in the conversation. I see that now part of the conversation is, how is what you're talking about relevant to what we're dealing with today, and what kind of shifts you can do to use the knowledge that you have from your ancestor, from your old culture, into what we need in the future. And it's the same with modern culture. Like, how can we use the technology, the phones that modern culture created, to do something different with what we need right now? There is this thing where a lot of people in modern culture, I want to bring this up, they think that the phones and the technology, that's modern culture, or the computer or the planes that he invented. But what I say, and I think I heard Clinton say it before, is like, that modern culture didn't create the phone. Creative people that sat and got this inspiration and sat in their labs and were exploring technology on their edge came up with the technology to create this phone. And yes, they work in organizations that were probably in the top of them were controlled by, I don't know, people that were not, like, let's say, anti-patriarchal, but this organization were made with mostly really great people, and they were not, like, gathered together to create the modern culture or to create patriarchy. They just created to, do whatever they can, and they use their creativity, their human resources, to create something like that, like to invent the airplanes. And so now using it is not, again, it's something that can serve us to go forward and to become this successful experiment of Gaia.
Yeah. Yeah, my guess is that in a lot of creative spaces where these material technologies were developed, there weren't necessarily participants in those spaces who would say, whoa, I have resistance to this possibility because the lithium that it takes to make this component of this technology costs the earth, costs species, costs next generation. It creates so much of a mess physically in the geographical areas, in the ecosystems, and in microsystems, that it is not worth it. Like, or maybe someone did say that, and then the rest of the people decided, no, it is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in a way, it seems like that's happened, whether it was conscious or unconscious, whether it was voiced or just whispered in someone's mind somewhere. But it how it went was how it went. and how it can go and how it's starting to go. I think there are more, when it comes to the physical technologies, there are still people who are really on track for it's okay to, it's okay for these cobalt mines to exist where human beings are working in very dangerous conditions. That, you know, because they'll get paid money, and they're so scared that they won't survive without that money. And they might be right that they wouldn't survive without that money. And so these technologies keep getting more and more elaborate. And my gremlin often is like, I hope those guys leave for Mars already soon. Like, get them off the planet. And then we can kind of do our thing without the high tech kind of pioneers that are still like pushing that edge, and rather come have more people, like a critical mass of people who are willing to climb down the technology ladder back to earth. And so instead of using lighters and even matches, it's friction fire. All right, that's good. We got a fire. That's all the exploding we're going to do. We're not going to do all these other kinds of exploding in fossil fuel motors and electrically fueled motors, which is really, from what I've seen, one half, six of one half dozen of the other, and who are really like working this Gaian edge of slowing down and using the Gaian technology that already exists to survive physically, and then thrive into this 5 body and 3 world interwoven space where it's all taken into consideration.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes me liquid. So I enjoy this because yeah, just getting snapped into this image because yeah, I think at some point I got snapped into a uh, different kind of story that somehow the technology would reach this sustainable edge where you can produce water out of thin air in the desert, and then like yeah, whatever, people are going to fly to other stars to do whatever they want, but there's going to be some sustainability sanity on the planet with using technology to a certain limit, and at the same time, like amazing, like we're doing right now, rage clubs online via Zoom. So it can be cool also to go via virtual reality and stand next to each other and do it. And it can also, like, I would rather do it live around the fire, right?
This is the trajectory I want to go, is use the digital technology so that as a path to actual reality rather than as a path to virtual reality.
Yeah. So where I was going with this is that the technology is going to be also sustainable enough for us to not need to work so much and put so much effort in this, like you know yeah, we can just like really hang out next to the fire and develop human consciousness. And yeah, we're probably, like, I can imagine it's the same with the technology of like the phone getting smaller and the computer getting better, and it's like it gets to a point where I don't need to take a lot of stuff. Like I can really pack. I imagine in the future just having like one gadget that take care of all my survival, and then I can go hiking because I just have this little gadget, with.
How would a gadget feed you? Like, feed your food
I
or
mean,
make
now
you
when I
fit?
go out, if I want to do like, if I go on survival or like do like to survive in the forest, so I need my bow and I need my knife and I need my flashlight. And I can do that, I get survivor mode full on. I can do it with none of this stuff and friction fire and craft a spear or whatever, or build my own bow. But yeah, I think I think that's also technology to some extent.
Yeah, I lost you about how one gadget would would equal a fire and a boat and a bow and arrow to hunt with.
That's the thing. What used to be like, for example, now I have this bottle that filters out water. So I don't need to carry anymore like all this water on me when I go traveling. I can just filter the water like this. And I used to do it by putting a pot and boiling the water over the fire and then purifying the water and drink them. And now I have these little gadgets. All these like you go to REI, like all these gadgets become like really small and compactable and
Yeah.
everything all in one.
It's wild because Dor, the whole planet is a water purification system. And it's built in everywhere, except that human activity has diverted so much water out of the filtration cycle that works. It's like we just kind of, it's a little bit like if you, what's a good analogy? Like if you wear so many clothes but you don't wash them, like you wear your clothes and have them get stinky faster than you wash them. Like you let them pile up and pile up and pile up in storage, and then you have all these dirty clothes. And it's like we have all this dirty water because we haven't been letting it go back through the filtration systems, partly because we've been messing with the filtration systems, putting dams in rivers and throwing toxic waste in the ocean and lakes and I mean, we've just in a way like rebuilt so much of Gaia that she's become this massive greenhouse that is heating up really fast, and that changes water's movements in a lot of ways. Very scary stuff. And I think that people who really expand, however they do it, expand into becoming spaces where more possibilities can come through and where they have more access to possibilities and collaborative creation, some of those problems can be solved. But I think it's not going to be by sitting by a fire all day, every day, or it's going to be by, all the work that people kind of put under the category of the things I don't want to do. I mean, there's that saying in Taoism or Buddhism, maybe in both, like before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also, before enlightenment, grow gardens, harvest, forage for food, prepare it, cook it, enjoy it with your friends. Like I got so fit, so much more fit when I was in California on this permaculture project, because how much walking I was doing and how much lifting and bending is. It's like my exercise regime was totally like check, check, check all the exercise boxes, and I didn't exercise once. Oh no, that's not true. I did some stretches one day around the fire. We had a like popcorn stretch class. But I didn't need to find a gym, go to a gym, pay for a gym. I mean, not that I do that ever, but there's so many ways that human beings have, yeah, individual human beings have got together with other individual human beings to create this technology that takes all of these resources from Gaia and does all the things that we used to enjoy as more Gaian connected humans. And now we have all these illnesses and accidents that can happen because we use this advanced material technology. It's pretty wild. Like when I really think about it, I'm like, wow, fascinating. which is this word that I apply more and more to coming back to kind of modern culture civilization. Like looking at a window, I can be like, fascinating. We humans take all this sand off the beach and turn it into glass, and then take all this metal out of the earth and turn it into window frames, take these fossil fuels out of the earth and turn them into plastic window frames, and then when the seals start breaking around the edges, they take them out and throw them in the landfill and put new ones in. Whoa, that's wild. It's really wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed this conversation because there's this story I have about, when I'm talking to people and I'm like, I'm doing this, I'm part of this possibility management game world. I'm doing possibility management. And we talk about what it is, and sometimes it's, we're taking radical responsibility for next culture. And sometimes rarely people ask, but what happens if you think radical responsibility is doing one thing and the other person thinking about doing something else? It's like, don't you, doesn't it, like, how do you agree on that? So people, I think it's coming from people, like they hear about like even yoga, and even like NLP, or like human design, all these things, they become like astrology, they become like a religion, they become like this pack of opinions or belief systems.
Yeah.
And then they don't get like how it, like, if me and you can sit here and have like not even I don't believe in anything, but it's just like an idea, or like distinctions about how stuff work. And now I'm learning from you different like distinction that I never thought about, and you experienced them, so they really landed in you. And now you're sharing them here, and they kind of like download in me, and it was not what I was thinking at all, but it's so great, and we're still in the same game world, and we're still cooperating to create the same thing. So it's quite fascinating that it works like this.
Yeah, it's wild. One of the one of the I was doing gremlin transformation coaching one-on-one with Vera, and watching my rules about what was right and what was wrong just disintegrate. And and it it's one of my things that I notice now when I move through different spaces and game worlds is these kind of vestiges, like these still existing. Sometimes they're not very clear and they're not very strong, but there's still this right wrongness or good badness that still kind of hangs around. And sometimes it's really rigid, but sometimes it's faint. And it's amazing what even a faint kind of thought form of good, bad, right, wrong can do in a space. Yeah, an example of that was I revealed to I've done the experiment on two different times of revealing that I don't use toothpaste. And and the people were like, "What?" And I haven't gone to a dentist in over 10 years. And people were like, "What?" Like, and there's just this sense of like, no, it's good to use toothpaste, it's good, it's right to go to the dentist. You have to, like, else you could get sick, you could die, you could, all these bad things could happen. And and it was so wild for me to even sense my fear start to rise about, if they think I'm bad or wrong or that this
Mm-hmm.
is dangerous, that they'll want to move away from me and I'll be alone. And it was like, oh, it was, and it was almost like it could go anywhere with that little bit of good, bad, right, wrong in the space.
Mm-hmm.
And that I was even like, oh, there I go, making it good or bad or right or wrong.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it a religion, like when you have all these right or wrongs about how things should be, and it start to operate in someone. Or I at least try to, to not to catch myself doing those little moves.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be so quick. I mean, the gremlin projection that someone said that I was right or wrong or good or bad can be so quick.
So more about the gremlin transformation in the link below.
Yes.
For anyone that doesn't know what is gremlin transformation, it's recommended. And yeah, I think it's kind of bring me to the beginning of this conversation when we just met and we asked each other what are the project that we are working on, and it seems like we brought also the edge of ourself, not only what we're working on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really glad about that, and I'm excited to all the people that are going to meet you in the spaces, uh, in the spaces to come, or in the project that you're creating, the spaces that you're going to participate in. And I'm a little bit jealous. I know it's not a good word to say, but
It's not a bad word.
and yeah, thank you so much for this conversation. It's so great.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I have a passenger to take from the airport to my pirate house. So
Yes, go. Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing more from you in the spaces that we use digitally for messages, and who knows what will happen in the in-person world.
and thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everyone that watched this conversation,
Yeah.
and stay connected. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.